In the Know, a radio program talking to the newsmakers in Ogle, Lee, DeKalb counties and beyond, keeping you in the know. Here's your host, Charles Van Horn.
Good morning and happy Sunday. Big holiday weekend. In studio this morning, Elijah Botts. Good morning.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
It is glad to have you here. You may be known a little bit in and around the community for doing a couple of special projects with children at the library and at some other venues. We'll talk about that in a moment. But first, you are going to be a senior this next year. You are just a high school lad, as it were.
Yes.
And accomplished a lot already because you are one of the founding players of Lightbeam Players out of DeKalb, a small children, I guess, friendly theater group, right?
Yeah, I would describe us as a children's theater company.
And by being a children's theater company means, obviously, kids who have that yearning for the spotlight can certainly work with you guys. And you obviously have probably a number of those kids who are attention-seeking, so to speak, excited to be in the theater. Because that's the one thing about theater kids is it's always about being that person, being that star, having that shining moment.
We had a kid who... We've had kids who, like we, in our current show, we have a kid who is 7, and he has, 20 lines, which for a 7-year-old is a ton of lines, and he is already memorized, and he's doing a great job.
Is he memorizing other people's lines yet?
Yeah, seriously. He when we did our last show, we would be running scenes, and he would just start to, someone would forget their line, and he would just give it to them. He memorized pretty much the whole script.
Nice. As someone who's done theater myself, there's nothing I love more than when I can have a prop in my hand that might have the starting 3 words of my next line written on them. I will say this. I one time had to eat an apple on stage, and I wrote on apples a lot. So Lighthouse Players, as it were, or Lightbeam Players.
A lighthouse is our logo, though.
See, I knew it meant something. You guys started when?
So we have an interesting history. So we come July, we will be celebrating our 5th anniversary.
Nice.
We started back during July of 2020 when I was just 11. It started as a very small, just get together with some friends, get some new people, and we just kind of did some online plays. Which online theater, I never want to go back to that. But doing theater over Zoom is certainly an experience.
I have taken part in some of that. It's sort of a fun. I've done table reads before of famous works, and that is a hoot to do. But there's always that one person who's lagging, and you're just waiting on them.
It was either lag or it was either lag or it was just someone didn't mute their mic or
distracted by the dog
or something. But we started as an online theater group, and then back in June of 2023 we launched with our first in-person play.
Yeah.
We did a play from Plays Magazine called February on Trial, and then progressed a few more shows, and I started to write the scripts for it, and now we just kind of constantly do a show. I think at the end of this year, we will have performed 4 shows.
Great. So when you talk about these shows, again, plays and the like, there is a ton of different sources to get plays, to get scripts. And when you're working with children's shows, there's a ton of these real cheesy short kids plays that every elementary school attempts to do,
right.
And everybody's little darling is amazing. We'll say that. But how do you select a show? How does that find? Do you look in these sources, or have you guys written your own? How does that go?
So typically, in recent, I've been the one who's been writing the shows. So typically what I do is so our current show we're doing is called The Dazzling Double Life of Diana Diamond, which is a very long title.
That's alliteration, my friends.
I love alliteration. But basically, it's kind of like a... think of it of a parody of a Disney Channel show like Hannah Montana, or a parody of a bunch of different sitcom stuff.
Gotcha.
And a bunch of different teen movie cliches. And it just kind of pokes fun at all of those and all those like premises. And essentially what I do is I will either take a public domain work to adapt it from, like we just did a play called The Cowardly Lion and the Quest for Oz, which is based off a really deep cut 1920s sequel to The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
Which was really interesting to adapt. It was really fun. Or I take inspiration from other sources and we either do a show that's a parody of it. I'm working on a show that we're doing this fall.
Spoilers.
That's drawing inspiration from a lot of different fantasy worlds.
Yeah.
And like pretty much like, so every kid who is in our show, something we do differently, every kid who is in our show gets a named part with lines.
Yeah.
Instead of just being like bush number 3.
What about tree number 6, though? I was always proud of being tree number 6.
What about tree number 7?
That, you know what? They're just an amateur bush league. So you put together these ensembles, but how many kids do you sort of cram onto your performance space in a show?
So our current cast has 15, but so we average around 15 per show.
Yeah.
But we're hoping to grow it even more.
The performance spaces you've done it's a little like vaudeville, I suppose. You sort of just roll in and get it done. Where are some of the places you've put on some of these shows?
So we have performed in a total of 5 different spaces overall. Our current show we're doing is performing at the Rochelle Library, the Cortland Lion's Den in collaboration with the Cortland Library because they don't have an event space of their own. So they use the Lion's Den. And then we are performing at the DeKalb Library. And then we are collaborating with the DeKalb Park District. They have a day camp called Camp Discover, and we're going to go in and perform like a show before we open our public performances for the kids to see a full-length play.
That's great. And set pieces, chairs, things like that on stage? Do you have backdrops? How does that look?
For our current show, we don't really have many set pieces, but our last show, we had a backdrop. We had like a single backdrop that we used for a couple different scenes, and then we had this. My mom made this giant throne. And the thing with the throne is that it was really hard to like transport from place to place. But it was such a cool set piece, and I love having the giant set pieces. I love having I love having all of that. Our current show just isn't a very set heavy show.
So you don't need it for the storytelling. The kids do that. What's the ages of the kids involved in this current show?
So in our current show, it is 7 to 16. Typically, I would say if you want to get involved in our group, I'd say it's around 7 to 17 or 10 to 17, depending on the show.
And you guys have done a number of shows. You've got shows coming up at a bunch of venues, including the Rochelle Library. You've been at the Rochelle Library in the past, right?
Yes, we started performing. So we originally we had just been performing at DeKalb, and then eventually we added on Cortland and Rochelle with our fall show last year, and we've just been performing at all 3 ever since.
Rochelle Library, when is the next show, date, and time?
So our performances for the Dazzling Double Life of Diana Diamond are on. We have 2 shows on June 6th. We have our 2 p.m. show at the Rochelle Library, and then we have a 7 p.m. show at the Cortland Lion's Den. And then on June 7th, we will be performing at 10 a.m. at the DeKalb Public Library.
And DeKalb Public Library, that's the big venue, right? That's the big house?
They have in the Euclidus room, they have like the stage downstairs, so that's where we do our stuff with them. But I would say I really love the crowds that come to all 3. I really love all of them.
So the inspiration to start this, you said was doing some stuff as a small theater group when you were 5 years ago and you were younger. Obviously, you're still in high school now. How hard of a sell was it to your friends to be, I got an idea, let's take this to the next level and put butts in seats and see if we can get actual people to come to us as opposed to us finding them?
Actually, not really hard at all.
Really?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm more thankful that my parents just kind of went with it.
Yeah.
You know?
They didn't put any roadblocks up for you anyway.
Yeah, A lot of my friends are involved currently or have been involved in a show or two in the past.
Yeah.
And it's it was a really it really wasn't a hard sell at all. I'd say that it was just kind of a natural progression of things.
And theater is absolutely fun. Being involved in the arts is fun. Not only is just being able to pretend to be somebody else an absolute riot, the team building that takes place when you do a show, the rehearsal, the responsibilities, all that stuff factors into growing up and learning how the world works. A lot of it comes through theater. As listeners to In the Know may have heard, I've talked about my run doing various theater things, and I always stress the importance it is for a lot of careers to have sort of that background of drama or the arts, because let's be realistic, not every situation are you allowed to be yourself. Sometimes you have to pretend to be somebody else, whether it's job interviews, customer service, things like that. These are all skills that come into being. Now, I'm not saying you have to deceive people all the time, but it helps. So let's talk about the lessons learned. Have you had kids that have come through the program that when they started, they were shy, they were bashful, and at the end, the next thing you know, they're out there, big smiles and open arms?
100% every single time.
Yeah.
Every single show. I have known a lot of the kids in Lightbeam. Not all of them, but I've known some of them for 5 years now. Just given the fact that I knew them before they got involved with Lightbeam, and and I've seen kids just develop so much with their acting skills, with their confidence, with their just everything, and it's so amazing to get to watch as their director. I love seeing their progression. They just gaining more confidence in themselves, and I've seen it so many times, and I really do believe theater is a great outlet for that.
Yeah, and then the parents see that too, because the parents will obviously go from show to show to show to see their child perform, and it is an amazing thing when you see that mind blossom into becoming something else. Now, when you have these shows and you have the kids performing, has there been a moment when the actor on stage has gone above and beyond expectations? You talked about that before of the one kid who's got all of his lines and everybody else memorized. Certainly an example of that. Has there ever been somebody who's just blown you away, who's been like, I didn't predict this when we started this process. All of a sudden, this kid's just blown up.
Well, so I think some really good examples of that is, for one, when we did, so last fall we did an adaptation of the children's novel, The Boxcar Children. We did a play called The Boxcar Children Finding Home. And the girl who played Jessie, she had some really sad moments in the show, and I knew she was going to do great with it. But during one of the performances, she just went beyond what I thought what she had been doing. She just added so much inflection, and she was so it was the portrayal of the sad emotions that her character was going through. She did such a great job with that. And then with our past show we did The Cowardly Lion and the Quest for Oz. We did, my sister played a character named Queen Adora, who is this evil queen who was trying to capture the Cowardly Lion to make him her pet. And she was just I would see her do a line and somebody she would come up with so many different ways to say it, and it was so funny every time. And I love, she's really good with her roles like that, and I love seeing the different even if we rehearse it a certain way, I love seeing people during a show they'll either ad-lib something or they'll just say it completely differently, and it's oh my gosh, that's so funny.
Getting their finger right on the pulse of what the audience wants to see. Lightbeam Players. Find them on Facebook. Coming up at Rochelle Public Library. What's the date and the name of the show again?
The show is named The Dazzling Double Life of Diana Diamond, and our show is called The Dazzling Double Life of Diana Diamond, And our Rochelle performance will be on June 6th at 2 p.m. and it's free. All of our shows are free to attend. And
Donations welcome, I'm sure.
yes, donations are always welcome.
Elijah Botts, Lightbeam Players, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to this week's In the Know. The program returns next week at this time with another great conversation with someone from your community.